Aisha only planned to buy a school uniform from a store that her family recently acquired, but instead, she faced a bitter reception from the store manager, who saw nothing beyond her appearance. What started as a simple shopping trip quickly escalated into something far more serious when Aisha refused to stay quiet. The truth about her identity became the tipping point, leading to events that would surprise even the most experienced onlookers. But let's begin with how it all unfolded. It was a warm afternoon, and Aisha strolled down the busy street, taking in the sunshine. She made her way to the clothing store her father had recently taken ownership of. The shop was important to her family. Her father had worked tirelessly to buy it, and now they felt a personal connection to it. Aisha wanted to check out how the place was doing and pick out a uniform for the upcoming school term. As she stepped inside, she immediately felt something was amiss. The store itself looked impeccable, clothes neatly arranged, floors spotless, but there was an odd tension in the air that made Aisha feel uncomfortable. Shrugging off the uneasiness, she began browsing through the racks, choosing a few shirts and skirts for herself. That's when she noticed a woman observing her from a distance. It was Nadia, the store's manager. Nadia, with a cold expression, slowly approached Aisha. The closer she got, the more apparent her disdain became. Standing right in front of her, Nadia looked Aisha up and down, as though judging every detail of her appearance before speaking. "What do you think you're doing in here?" she asked, her voice cold and condescending. Aisha blinked in disbelief, caught off guard by the question. She had expected a normal shopping trip, not an interrogation. Still, she remained calm and answered, "I'm looking for a school uniform." Nadia's sneer deepened, and her tone became more hostile. "This isn't the place for you. If you're looking for cheaper clothes, you might want to try the clearance section," she snapped, adding, "We don't hand out free stuff here." Aisha's heart raced. This blatant discrimination stunned her. Nadia's words were laced with a kind of venom that Aisha had rarely encountered before. But instead of reacting with anger, she remembered her father's advice about standing her ground. "I've got money," Aisha replied, holding her head high. But Nadia wasn't interested in her response. "If you're not buying, leave. This store isn't for people like you." Nadia's voice dripped with contempt. At that moment, Aisha realized this situation wasn't just about a shopping trip, it was about something much deeper. She felt her pulse quicken, not from fear, but from a surge of righteous anger. "You don't even know who I am," Aisha said, her voice steady. "I have every right to be here, just like anyone else." Nadia, however, was unmoved. She signaled to a nearby security guard, instructing him to escort Aisha out. The guard hesitated, unsure of what was happening, but Nadia's rigid demeanor didn't waver. The threat of being forcibly removed fueled Aisha's determination. She wasn't going to be bullied out of the store her father owned. Nadia clearly didn't know Aisha's connection to the shop, and that ignorance only heightened the injustice of the moment. "Do you hear me? Leave, or I'll call the police," Nadia said, folding her arms and glaring at Aisha. "We don't serve people like you." Those words, "people like you," hit Aisha hard. It was clear now, this wasn't just rude customer service. This was open, unapologetic racism. Aisha's hands trembled with fury, but she controlled her voice. Instead of arguing or shouting, she quietly reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. This wasn't just a personal battle anymore, it was a matter of principle. She dialed her father's number, knowing that he would understand the gravity of the situation. "Dad," she said softly, trying to keep her voice calm, "I need you to come to the store." "There's a problem?" Aisha's father didn't ask many questions. He knew his daughter well enough to know when something was wrong. He told her he'd be there soon. As Aisha ended the call, Nadia watched with growing impatience. "What, you think calling someone will change anything? I run this store, not you," Nadia spat. Aisha simply put her phone back in her pocket, her confidence growing. She wasn't nervous anymore. "You'll find out soon enough," she said quietly, her calm demeanor unsettling Nadia. Customers were beginning to take notice, and the store, once quiet, now buzzed with curiosity. The security guard, sensing that the situation was more complicated than it appeared, hesitated to take further action. Aisha stood her ground, determined not to back down. Moments later, Aisha's father arrived. He entered the store with an air of authority, his face calm but stern. As he approached, Nadia's smirk faltered, but she still held on to her misplaced confidence. "Is there a problem here?" Aisha's father asked, his voice measured. Before Nadia could respond, Aisha stepped forward, her composure unbroken. "This is the manager, Dad," she said, her voice steady. "She told me I didn't belong here." She threatened to have me removed from the store. Nadia's eyes widened as the realization of who Aisha was began to sink in. Aisha's father wasn't just any man, he was the owner of the very store Nadia managed. The room seemed to grow quieter as customers and employees watched in silence. Without raising his voice, Aisha's father turned to Nadia. "Is that true? You've been treating my daughter this way." Nadia stammered, her arrogance crumbling as she tried to explain herself. But it was too late, the damage had been done. Aisha had stood up not just for herself, but for something far greater. What had started as a routine visit to buy a school uniform had turned into a powerful stand against prejudice. In the end, Aisha's strength, her refusal to be silenced, and her father's calm but firm response served as a powerful lesson to everyone present. The store, once clouded with tension, had become a space of change, one where everyone, regardless of their background, would be treated with the respect they deserved. Aisha left that day with more than just a school uniform, she left with a renewed sense of pride and justice. A short while later, the store's door swung open, and Aisha's father strode in with a calm yet commanding presence. Tall and dignified, he exuded a quiet authority that immediately drew attention from everyone in the store. Though his eyes showed concern, his expression remained steady. Without pausing, he headed directly toward his daughter, noticing a small group of curious onlookers who had gathered around. He spared a glance at Nadia, the store manager, who continued to stand with an air of superiority, unaware of who he was. He gently hugged Aisha and asked, "What's going on?" Aisha's voice was calm but filled with hurt as she explained what had transpired. Nadia had tried to force her out of the store, making degrading assumptions about her ability to pay for the uniform she was trying to buy. Her father listened intently, his expression growing more serious with each word. When Aisha finished speaking, he turned to Nadia with a calm, measured tone. "Is what my daughter says true?" Nadia, still oblivious to who she was addressing, crossed her arms with an air of arrogance and replied, "Yes, that's true. I asked her to leave because it's clear she can't afford anything in this store. We're not here to give away merchandise." The tension in the room escalated as customers began whispering, sensing the gravity of the situation. Even the store's security guard stood on edge, unsure of how to proceed. Aisha's father remained composed, though a hint of anger began to rise in his voice. He spoke again, his tone sharper now. "Let me be clear, this store belongs to me. I bought it several months ago. And the young woman you just insulted? She's my daughter." Nadia's confident demeanor crumbled instantly, her face draining of color as the realization of her mistake hit her like a tidal wave. Her eyes widened in disbelief, darting between Aisha and her father. She hadn't anticipated this outcome. Stammering, she attempted to backpedal. I didn't know," she muttered, her voice faltering. "It was just a misunderstanding?" Aisha's father didn't allow her to finish. "A misunderstanding?" he asked, his voice icy and controlled. "You judged my daughter based solely on how she looks. You didn't ask questions, you didn't treat her with respect. You just assumed?" He paused, letting his words sink in. "This isn't a misunderstanding, it's blatant discrimination." Nadia fell silent, her face a mask of shock and shame. The security guards, recognizing the seriousness of the situation, stepped back, realizing there was no need for their intervention. The entire store had gone eerily quiet, the air heavy with tension as customers watched the scene unfold. "I didn't realize she was your daughter," Nadia whispered, grasping for an excuse. Aisha's father shook his head, his voice steady but filled with conviction. "It doesn't matter who she is. It doesn't matter if she's my daughter or a stranger. What matters is how you treat people. And you treated her with disdain because of her appearance, nothing more. This is racism, plain and simple." Nadia's attempt at defending herself faltered. She looked around helplessly, meeting the disapproving stares of the gathered crowd. Her confidence had evaporated, and she struggled to form any coherent response. Aisha's father took a deep breath and delivered his final decision, his voice calm but resolute. "You're fired. I won't tolerate this kind of behavior in my store. Leave immediately." For a moment, Nadia stood frozen, too stunned to move. Then, realizing the finality of the situation, she quickly turned on her heel and hurried out of the store, her head down to avoid the gazes of the watching customers. The atmosphere in the shop was thick with silence as the door closed behind her. Aisha's father turned to her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You handled that situation with strength and dignity," he said softly. "I'm proud of how you stood up for yourself." Aisha exhaled deeply, the tension that had been building inside her finally releasing. She had faced the challenge head-on and knew she had done the right thing. Her father's words of encouragement meant everything to her in that moment. Around them, the customers exchanged quiet looks, many nodding in approval of how the situation had been resolved. Some even began clapping softly, acknowledging the justice that had just been served. The store, which had once been filled with tension and prejudice, now felt lighter, transformed by an act of courage and fairness. As they prepared to leave, Aisha knew this day would be one she'd never forget. It wasn't just about standing up to a bigoted store manager, it was about defending her dignity and knowing her worth. She walked out of the store with her father, her head held high, feeling stronger and more certain than ever that standing up for what's right, even in small moments, can change everything. This was a lesson Aisha would carry with her for the rest of her life. No matter how difficult the situation, never allow yourself to be diminished by the judgments of others. Always stand up for your rights, your identity, and your dignity, even when it's hard, even when it seems easier to stay silent. Because sometimes, those battles are the most important ones of all. As Aisha and her father left the store, the weight of the day's events settled in. What had started as a routine shopping trip had turned into something far more significant. The quiet triumph in their hearts was undeniable, not just because they had exposed the injustice Aisha faced, but because they had stood together as a family, demanding respect and dignity. Aisha thought back on the encounter, realizing how easily things could have gone differently. She could have chosen to stay silent, to leave the store without making a scene, but deep down she knew that walking away would have meant accepting the mistreatment. Her father's unwavering support, not only as the store owner but as a father who believed in his daughter's strength, made all the difference. In standing her ground, Aisha had set an example, not just for herself, but for everyone in the store that day. Outside, the sun was still shining brightly, a stark contrast to the emotional storm they had just weathered. Aisha looked at her father, who gave her a proud smile, and she knew that she had come out stronger. What she had faced wasn't unique to her, so many people experience prejudice daily. Yet, she also understood that fighting back in moments like these, however small they may seem, is how change begins. The story spread quickly throughout the town, and soon people were talking about more than just the incident at the store. Conversations opened up about discrimination, respect, and standing up for what's right. Aisha became a quiet symbol of strength in the community, her actions reminding everyone that dignity is something worth fighting for, no matter how intimidating the opposition may seem. The moral of Aisha's story is clear: never allow others to define your worth based on superficial judgments. No one should be treated differently because of the color of their skin, their appearance, or their background. Aisha's experience in the store was painful, but it was also a reminder that injustice must be confronted head-on. Whether it's in small, everyday encounters or larger societal challenges, it takes courage to speak out against prejudice. And often, that courage can inspire others to stand alongside you, as Aisha's father had done for her. Moreover, the incident highlighted the importance of treating others with kindness and respect, regardless of who they are or where they come from. Everyone deserves to be seen for who they truly are, not dismissed because of assumptions or stereotypes. In a world that is often quick to judge, Aisha's actions showed that standing up for yourself can change not only your own life but also the way others perceive and treat people. In the end, Aisha's story isn't just about one girl in a store, it's about the power of resilience, the importance of family, and the unyielding need for justice. It serves as a reminder that even in the face of adversity, we must always stand tall and refuse to accept anything less than the respect we deserve.